guys, the Adventurous Allotment here. I'm by my compost bins now, and with good reason, because I want to do a quick video explaining on my compost, how I get my compost, how I make it, basically how I produce my compost, etc, etc. So I try to aim, I'd say, in terms of household waste, I try to aim to get rid of all the compostable stuff in here. That's things like paper, cardboard, um, any like used stuff like vegetable ends, skins, stuff like that I'm not using and not eating. I try to put it on the compost pile as much as possible. So in reality, I try to throw away only about 20% of what I use, if that. So and I try to get about 40% of what I use composted into soil, because it's so expensive, and obviously soil is a commodity to the point where if you don't have it made up, it becomes quite difficult to sort of do things like this, because having a freely available soil is really important when you're on the allotment or when you're growing plants like this. You really have to have that freely available, and if you don't have it freely available, it starts getting expensive. So the idea of some things like compost heap is to keep it in a cycle, whereas everything is within that cycle. Like you use composting, you compost old leaves, etc. So it never really leaves the site, and it means you can be self-sufficient with what you use, which is really good then, because that means, well, you're not spending any money unnecessarily on things that, you know, you don't need to spend it on. So like, I thought I'd discuss this today. I've got my compost heap here. This is the compost heap that I'm using. This is all full of leaves and whatnot, and cuttings and stuff like that. But what I do is anything like a cereal box or paper or letters or envelopes or anything like that that I can get rid of, I bring out here, I cut it into little bits, and I put it on the compost heap. And it's really useful because this stuff breaks down quite quickly, and it's a good source of carbon. It has a good structure when it develops soil, so it's very open and free draining soil. It's really good. So I've got that there, and that's all my household stuff goes on there, because it's like I said, it's quickly degrading and it produces soil quickly. Things like leaves go on there as well. Any plant foliage that I don't use goes on there. It's basically, it's the stuff that will develop into soil like relatively fast. Then like what I've got here, we've got three parts. I've got the middle bit, which is like all of your branches and all of your like woody bits that take a bit longer to compost down. They go on here. So that's pieces of wood that I can't use anymore or whatever. It takes years to break down, but yeah, we put that in there. So it's like things that we've cut back, like trees, branches, stuff like that. And then in this, I do something a bit different than most people, because when you're bringing up a compost heap, one of the things that people say is just don't put weeds on the compost heap, because they'll grow in, they'll become infested with weeds, and then before you know it, you're overrun with weeds. Well, I'm going against this whole thing, because this whole compost heap here, if you can see it, just down here is just all the weeds that I dig out around the beds and around the allotment. I chuck on this compost heap, and the thing that I find with this is, as long as you keep layering it up with weeds, the weeds don't grow back, because they can't, because they're basically, the light's excluding, eventually they die. So a lot of the stuff that goes on here just gets buried and turns into brilliant compost. And it really is fantastic compost, because a lot of the stuff is green, it's high in nitrogen, and over like 2 years or so it becomes really crumbly, a really open texture, something like I said with that cardboard and the carbon. So the idea is to get all this nitrogen stuff and add it later to the carbon, and it produces this really amazing soil. And that's what I plan to do over the next few years, and hopefully that means I won't have to use any or source in any compost, which is often expensive, like I said before. So yeah, and then of course, past this weed compost heap, we've got all the manure here, and that's breaking down, and then that will be added to the compost there. So it's like, it's a process. And yeah, so I thought I'd show you my compost heap and how I run things and why I do it, etc. And yeah, so I hope you found that interesting. If you've got any questions, ask in the comments section, and I'll do my best to answer. But that's that video, and I'd like to say thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't, and if anyone's into composting and wants some advice, then share this with a friend, and if they want to message me or something, or add a comment, I'll try and answer if I can. So thanks for watching again, and I'll see you next time for the next video.